Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. Yeah, I wanted to do a little video on the new version of Cinderella that just re-aired in honor of the 5-year anniversary death of Whitney Houston. There was a version of Cinderella that she had done in 1997 with Brandy. That I wanted to speak about. It just really aired on Disney Plus um, yesterday. And what are some of the key differences with this version versus the original 1950s version, the cartoon version that Disney did? Of course, um, the story of Cinderella dates back to the 16th century. Um, the 16th century French writer Charles Pouliot, who wrote the original, but this version was based on the Disney version. So, what's different about this? First of all, this one is the first one to include a multiracial cast. Not only is Whitney Houston portraying the fairy godmother, she is African American, Brandy is portraying Cinderella. You have an Asian actor portraying the prince, and you have Whoopi Goldberg in it as the queen. And Whoopi Goldberg's jewelry in this show was actually worth 60 million dollars worth of jewelry that she was wearing as Queen Constantina. So that's why I think they aired this. Not only for Whitney Houston's the fifth anniversary of Whitney Houston's passing, but also a mark to Black History Month. This being the first multiracial, or as they use the term, colorblind casting. You know, casting an Asian man as the prince, casting Whitney as the fairy godmother, and casting Brandy as Cinderella. And you have the sisters, also um, African American as well. You know, color is not an issue. Color and racism is not an issue in this um, in this adaptation. And that was really a mark for 1997. Was was Whitney Houston's idea. Whitney Houston actually went to the producers and told them that she wanted to play this role. After she played in the movie Gypsy, she had another idea to produce a Cinderella, but she didn't want to play the lead character of Cinderella. She wanted to play the fairy godmother because she felt that being that she was a mom, being that she was in her 30s, she was too old at this time to play Cinderella. So she wanted to give someone else a chance, and that's where Brandy comes in. Also, this one kind of um, kind of portrays Cinderella as more strong-willed than the original, because in the original, basically Cinderella is just a damsel in distress, waiting for the prince to put the right shoe on her, and she is being picked on by the stepmother, being picked on by the stepsisters, and everything, and she is just a victim. In this one, she is a lot more empowered, keeping with the theme of female empowerment in the 1990s, but still keeping true to the original story, which basically is a story about class struggle. Because seeing as though Charles Perrault came from upper class French bourgeoisie background, um, he wrote the story of Cinderella as a commentary on how the peasantry in France reacts to the upper class. And as we know in history, that later manifested itself um, into what was the French Revolution. And that's what me with Cinderella represents. To many girls and women, Cinderella represents the Cinderella story. But from a sociological, socioeconomic standpoint, to me, Cinderella represents the poor, and the stepmother and the stepsisters represent the rich and the middle class, and the prince represents a humbling figure, a go in between figure between Cinderella, who is the poor, and um, the fairy godmother, and the prince, who is Cinderella's savior, or her saving grace, if you will. Yeah. So that's what I always thought. I know that's why you guys think, oh, what? I never really saw it that way. But yeah, I see it as a metaphor for the upper class. I mean, the underclass being abused by the upper class. And that directly ties in to why they would make this a multiracial casting. Because for a lot of young girls, before The Princess and the Frog, Disney never had any black representation in their movies except for this. This was landmark because this was the first time ever, to my knowledge anyway, that they had shown any sort of semblance of black royalty on TV. So, and the fact that they showed an Asian prince, also breaking from the typical mold of anti-Asian um, anti-Asian stereotypes in popular culture. Usually, Asian men are not portrayed as the most masculine and would never be picked as Prince Charming in a fairy tale movie like this. But um, with Mr. Montalban, um, they broke the mold with that. So in both instances, portraying black femininity on screen and portraying Asian masculinity on screen, they broke with popular stereotypes. And even though, even though in the original story, the fairy godmother is not portrayed as beautiful or glamorous, in this one she is. Whitney Houston is beautiful. Whitney Houston is glamorous. Whitney Houston is Whitney Houston. You know what I mean? So again, breaking with the stereotype of the traditional um, homely, magical type person that, although she may dispense good advice, like Hattie McDaniel's character in Gone with the Wind, she's not portrayed as glamorous. But in this one, Whitney Houston is portrayed as glamorous. So, anyway, I recommend that you guys check this out. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my videos again. Peace to you. God bless you. There's a lot of symbolism in the Cinderella story. Yeah, Whitney was 33, but that's the point I'm trying to make, Lisa. That exactly, she was 33 years old, and she had said to the producers that she was too old um, to portray the role of Cinderella. Originally, they wanted her for the role of Cinderella because My reaction to it now. What do you mean exactly? I don't understand. My reaction to it now. Can you elaborate a little more? Oh, when I first saw it versus how I feel now. When I first saw this on TV, um, that's a really good question. Um, so thank you. Um, I kind of fed into those kind of stereotypes, particularly about the Asian prince, like I was saying, because uh, being as I'm a male, I gravitate towards the male characters more, and I examine them more. I'm not going to really be able to speak on or to microanalyze the women portrayed in this, other than they were very beautiful or whatever, because I cannot speak to a female experience on this, or to a feminine experience, not necessarily a female experience, but to a feminine experience. But from the point of the prince, I felt it was very odd at first to have an Asian man portraying as the prince, because once again, in our society, um, heavily masculine roles are usually portrayed by you know white guys. Um, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Rocky, you know, Hulk Hogan, this type of thing. It's changed now, because now you have The Rock, now you have Vin Diesel, now you have um these other hyper masculine images that we see on screen now. But um in our society back then, you didn't really see like an Asian man as a prince, as the epitome of masculinity on TV. It was no such thing, no such thing. And this, like I said, this series broke new ground with portraying that on camera. Um, Black woman portraying Cinderella and a fairy godmother. Honestly, Lisa, in my opinion, this is just my honest opinion. Yeah, I was a huge fan of Brandy at the time, and I was a huge fan of Whitney, of course, at the time. And really saw, I've never seen black women as not feminine enough, or um, not adequate enough to portray an ultra feminine um, character like that, because I've mostly um, been in relationships with black women or women of Caribbean descent. So I and were attracted to even before I was dating. So um, that didn't strike me as anything different that it probably would to other people in society that were more racist. You know, yeah, yeah. Two, Lisa said in this version, the two stepdaughters were. But that's what let's go back to my original point, that it was colorblind casting. They weren't really looking at um, who was Asian, who was black, who was white, who was this and that. They were just going on the characters. Um, Now they probably would do something like that, because now everything is about excuse me, representation. Everything has to be like people are getting jobs based on them being a certain race or a certain gender or a certain sexual orientation, as opposed to just being good actors. You know what I mean? So it's kind of switched, I feel, in the other direction. You know what I mean? Where like they just want to have, and this just goes back to what I said about Soul. Why I think Soul was so good because Soul could have been a black character, could have been an Asian character, could have been Hispanic, could have been Middle Eastern, could have been any race, and it didn't really matter the race of the lead character of Soul. You could have took him out of a racial context and had him just as a as any race, Asian, black, whatever race, and it still would have the story still would have made sense. See, I didn't really see that from the movie. Like to me, I felt like this was more like a '90s. Maybe they saw that, but this was more like of a '90s version of representation because similarly with Ashanti when she played Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, because the character did have certain things like braids and everything that I guess would signify it as an African American woman. But what they did in the movie was not anything like they didn't call attention to her race all that much. You know, like she wasn't out there, making bold racial statements within the context of the story. It could have been done. She could have switched around the Cinderella story to a racial context, but that just wasn't. Oh, when it first aired, but I don't know what those critics were seeing, Lisa, because I didn't see that in the story. I didn't see anything ultra racial. I mean, yes, the braids, yeah. Now that you pointed that out. But other than that, honestly, can you say, you looking at it as a woman, can you say that there was anything in Brandy's character in the story that specifically pointed to something that was just exclusively African? Can anything exclusively African American? No, like they're just reaching for something that isn't there. Yeah, I was a kid and not racist. Yeah, well, I'm not racist now. I would hope that people don't see me as racist, and I didn't see that in those, you know, back then. Yeah, I would imagine that. Yes, exactly. See, this is important. This is important to know what Lisa just said. That when she was a kid, she loved it. This is why representation matters in movies. People say, "Oh well," and I made a video about this, years ago, and it's on my Facebook page. and I'll see if I could link it somehow to YouTube. But why Princess and the Frog first came out? Why I feel like representation does matter. You know what I mean? Like you have little girls like Lisa that were real young, and they saw for the first time ever on the screen princesses that look like them, that resemble them, and it inspired them to want to be, in a sense, princesses in their own life. And the same thing with boys. Why do you need something in like Finn in a Star Wars movie? Because people want to look back and they want to see their own reflection on screen, and they want to be inspired by that. And when you just have just white Caucasian um characters, yeah, it doesn't mean anything to you because you're not seeing it as a person of color. You know what I mean? But when we see things like this Cinderella movie, when we see things like um Finn in the Star Wars movie or a black WWE champion, that helps to inspire the young people that will say, you know what? Even though it's just a fairy tale, I can do it too. I can be inspired to do something great in my life. You know what I'm saying? So that's why movies like Coco, movies like Moana, movies like Princess and the Frog, and movies like this need to be made because little young black girls and little young girls of color, they need to know that they are princesses too. So what Lisa said is absolutely, I agree with Lisa that I can imagine as a little girl what the pride that she must have felt when watching this film. Just seeing somebody who represented her, even in a story like this, especially in a story like this, because like I said, Cinderella is about overcoming the odds. Cinderella is about achieving your dreams. And to a woman, to a young girl that's going to become a woman, um, it is a really inspiring thing. You didn't know there were dolls? Well, maybe you can still find them on eBay. But yeah, anyway, guys, this is very important to know why representation matters. And, and it's a very good film, and I recommend showing this to your children of all ethnicities and races. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace, and thank you, Lisa, for participating. Um, love you guys. Later. Yeah, Lisa, I didn't log out, but I was saying, yeah, the representation does matter, and I made a video about this years ago. People say, "Oh, well, why does it really matter?" I I didn't know there was a petition. See, there you go. I didn't know that. A petition to put this movie up. See, critics always bash. Like they say, oh, like with The Last Jedi. They always say, oh, well, why are you putting this racial stuff front and center. But they don't understand the mind of a kid that never saw themselves represented on screen. Oh, every other version of Cinderella was on. Wow. Well, Disney, unfortunately, um, they don't do a really good job at representing ethnic characters. They are getting better. Coco is an example. Soul is an example. Moana. But over the years, over the decades that Disney has existed, um, they haven't done a really good job at representing uh, people of color. I mean, they got in trouble back in the day in 1991. Oh, there's another live version. I didn't even know that. I can't say that I am a Cinderella aficionado. You know, or that it was even one of the Disney stories that I paid attention to because, again, as a boy, um, that doesn't didn't really appeal to me. But I will say the one that did appeal to me as a boy, I often say this, and this is my favorite Disney movie, Aladdin. They got in trouble years ago with Aladdin for there's some lyrics in the song that he says in the beginning, he says, I'll chop off your head if I don't like your face. And a lot of people felt at this time, although when Aladdin came out, there was no such thing as Islamophobia, um, that the movie had some sort of bias, some sort of Islamophobic tinge to it because of this song. And this song was taken out of the movie. So Disney has a history of not really representing minorities pretty well. You have Song of the South, that is a racist caricature of Southern life. Um, you have um, Donald Duck doing a Nazi salute in one of the 1940s versions, one of the 1940s cartoons. And then you have all these Disney princesses that um, up until like Aladdin, or they all been, Caucasian. You know what I mean? Like the original ones, Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, all Caucasians. Granted, they're based on European tales, so like, uh, I mean, you know, but people want to see representation in movies. One of the ones that I watched recently on Disney Plus that is a live action movie called, and it came out in 2000, but it's based on the 1970s, is The Color of Friendship. I recommend this movie, The Color of Friendship. It's about, I'm not going to give it all away, but it's about these two girls. One is from America and one is from South Africa. And it came out in 2000, but it's based on a book that came out in 1977. And you will be shocked by what Disney, this company that is so sanitized, like I said, that won't even touch. Lisa's saying right now, and it's true, Song of the South is not even on Disney Plus catalog. But I think this movie, Color Friendship, is on there. And this film, Color Friendship, shocked me by the subject matter that they talk about in terms of South Africa and the racism associated with apartheid in South Africa. And this is one I recommend for Black History Month. But this film, Cinderella, yes, it's a beautiful film. Whitney Houston was a great actress. I feel like a lot of times people focus, and rightfully so, on Whitney's music career, but her acting career was just as good. Of course, The Bodyguard, but also this, also The Preacher's Wife. Um, but there is a before I go, there is a version of Cinderella that is an all black cast. It's called Cindy, and it came out in the '70s. You know, this is not this version. It's not made by Disney, but it is another version of Cinderella that exists out there. But this version, well, I liked it because it was colorblind casting. Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say that, Lisa. I recommend that people watch this because it was colorblind casting. They didn't just want to cast an all-black cast. They wanted to cast a diverse cast. A Filipino actor as the prince, Whitney Houston, a white actor, a white actress as one of the stepsisters, and two other black actors. And it's striking to us because we look at everything in America through a racial lens. So we're like, can how the hell can they be sisters and then one is black, one is white? But so what? That was the point of this. That different races can coexist, and that just like Lou Gossett Jr. in Officer and a Gentleman, he got the role because he was good, not because he was necessarily African American. So I give this movie a thumbs up. And yes, Lisa, I do recommend people watch this film and give their thoughts and kind of comments below. And thank you, Lisa, for participating. Anything else you want to add? Anything else? Brandy was awesome in this. I agree, and she was beautiful. Brandy was coming off of the success of her TV show Moesha from the '90s, which I think is on Netflix. All the UPN shows are on Netflix. And that was another thing. UPN. And I was telling my mom this UPN really showed out in the '90s when it came to representation in marketing. Yeah, the girl from Baps was in this movie. She was one of the sisters, exactly. She just passed away last year. I have a video on my archives about her. Um, and but UPN was so good in the representation of African American TV shows and movies, and it all started with Moesha. It went from there to the spinoff, The Parkers, um, One on One, all these beautiful shows, Girlfriends, all these beautiful shows showing beautiful black women in strong and positive roles. And me being a kid, mostly attracted to black women in those days, I like to watch that. And One on One was so good, and so was Moesha because it showed a positive black father in the home, which was unique for television at the time and any time in movies and television. So, in terms of media, UPN was really representative of black black positive images, especially for men. And Brandy got that ball rolling. Sitting up in my room, that was the first time I think her and Whitney even worked together. The Waiting to Exhale soundtrack, and I loved that song. Like Brandy was so cute and such an around the way girl type in the 90s with a beautiful smile that could just light up a room. I think she could have really went further in her acting, but um, you know, she got married and had a kid, so I think that really derailed her. But yeah, she was she dominated the discussion. Even in my school, that was predominantly Caucasian, she predominated the discussion um, when this movie came out and when Moesha was on the air. I mean, Sitting on Top of the World, too, is another favorite of mine of Brandy. Um, the remix with Big Pun and Fat Joe. I'm going to love Big Pun and Fat Joe, too. So, yeah. Other than Aaliyah, she was probably my favorite female artist from back in the day, back in the day as far as R&B pop. In a way, she was kind of and I'll be doing a video about this documentary about this person soon once I see the documentary. In a way, Brandy was kind of like the Black Britney Spears. Yeah, Brandy. And look, now in real life, Lisa, you recommend that all girls see this. All girls of every race, exactly. Um, because other races will see that black women could be just as beautiful. But now in real life, in the real world, we actually do have an actual Cinderella in Meghan Markle. She's a girl from humble beginnings who became an actual real life princess. Who was African American. So in a way, are imitating life. Um, are she is okay? Are imitating life. Meghan Markle is the real Cinderella, if you think about it, Lisa, and everybody else out there. She's the real Cindy. Like the real life Cinderella, right? Came from humble beginnings and is now a princess, a Duchess of Sussex. Yeah, I didn't know Brandy was still singing. People liked Monica. I know Lisa did back in the day. Was more of a Monica fan. Everybody had their side back in the day. Some people like Brandy more, some people like Monica more. I like Brandy more. Her song, I mean, Monica was really pretty too. But as far as music, I kind of like Brandy more. She was kind of more hip hop ish, which was my end. You know what I was interested in. Even though Angel of Mine is one of my favorite songs from Monica. So I don't know. One thing we can all agree on: the R&B singers were better back in the day than they are right now, especially the female R&B singers and even the male ones. Um, One thing I want to say is that positive, like I said before, positive images are important. Uh, Even though I'm happy to hear, at least I say that Brandy is still singing and Brandy's doing well. This kind of ties into Whitney Houston. When I did the verses a while ago on Keisha Cole and Ashanti, um, we were all laughing and joking about how drunk Keisha Cole was. But a lot of times when people do have problems, like Whitney Houston had problems, like Britney Spears had problems, it's not really a good thing to really joke about it or laugh about it because it could be something serious, like Diane Sawyer, for example. Um, you know, Mocking Whitney Houston. We all want to have fun and we all want to laugh and joke. But a lot of times, people do have serious problems. And when they quit singing, sometimes you wonder, oh, what happened to them? Why did they do that? And, you know, we just want to pray for the health and well being of people instead of, trying to drag them down just because they're celebrities like Whitney was. Don't mean they deserve to be dragged through the mud. Whitney was absolutely beautiful in this role as the fairy godmother. And to me, she is the definitive fairy godmother of all the Cinderella versions. And as a fairy godmother, I feel like now in heaven, she's like watching over us, and watching over all the other R&B and hip hop, and R&B, especially princesses that exist in music, even those like Keisha Cole with struggles. Anyway, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Lisa, again, thank you for um, participating. I recommend this movie and I give it a thumbs up. Peace.